You been wearing them Jimmy hats like Grandma gave you?
Don't we just love her? Helen Dorothy Martin was born on July 23rd, 1909 in St. Louis, Missouri, but just a short while after her family moved to Nashville, Tennessee. During my research, I found some information that sums up Helen's life in her own words. So check this out. This is a 1988 article from Ebony, and it says, as Helen Martin playfully glides onto the set of NBC series 227, the entire studio audience erupts in laughter. This is just a prelude. Before long, she will have her co-stars laughing wildly with a series of dry one-liners. She provides so many laughs that it's difficult to realize there is a serious side to her. But indeed there is. She is extremely serious about her acting. She always has been. Unlike many actors, she says there was no idols or role models for her to emulate in the 1920s. Some people want to be doctors or psychiatrists, she says. All I knew is that I wanted to be in show business. Always did. Growing up in Nashville in the 1920s, there was anything but encouragement for a career as precarious as show business. When I was growing up, wanting to be in show business was like working for the devil. Some people still look down on it. Negative attitudes didn't deter her from dreaming of taking graceful bows while receiving a standing ovation. As an only child from a family of musicians, she was expected to be a concert pianist. After briefly attending Fisk University and Tennessee State University, she directed a 12-piece orchestra for a couple of years. When that job phased out, she did domestic work long enough to save $90 and proudly proclaimed to her employer that she was headed for Chicago to be in show business. In Chicago, her dream of show business success was temporarily shelved by the harsh realities of the Great Depression. She did more domestic work and took a job in a chemical factory before joining a federally sponsored theater project. She performed briefly in a play called The Great White Fog. Her husband, whom she married in 1939, urged her to go to New York if she was serious about show business. Broadway didn't immediately embrace her with open arms. She worked more odd jobs while performing in small productions. In 1940, she and a number of other black performers formed a group called the American Negro Theater. A small percentage of each person's acting wages were used to keep the group afloat. We had classes in body movement, speech, and voice, she says. The group disbanded several years later. Miss Martin's first major stage break came in 1942, and it came in a big way. I read where Orson Welles was coming to New York to direct Native Son. He had just finished Citizen Kane. He and John Houseman were partners at the time. She decided to take a chance and audition for the play despite her lack of Broadway credits. There was a line all the way around the building, she recalls. I was so scared, I was letting people by me. But somehow she summoned enough courage to go in and read. She impressed Wells enough to be cast in what turned out to be a hit Broadway production. That was my first debut. My first director was Orson Welles, and my second was Ella Karzan in Deep Are the Roots in 1945. I went to London in that one. Between those jobs, limited opportunities in the theater forced Miss Martin back to a variety of odd jobs. I worked at Western Union, in box factories, in private family homes, operated elevators in hotels, and served dinner parties. I always worked at something because I had to live. I have never been one of those people who was an actress only, eating peanut butter sandwiches the whole week. My telephone has never been cut off, and I've always paid my rent. I knew I had to make sacrifices. While she was always aware of racism, Miss Martin says she thought about it more in the late 1940s when a white co-star of a play she was doing was invited to Hollywood to try the movies. I had always been told what a fine actress I was. And if this society that we live in wasn't so prejudiced, it would be the way I knew it should be, with her also heading to Hollywood. And I was never one of those Negroes who wanted to be white. Hollywood did not pursue her or other black actresses simply because of their skin color, she says. I said to myself, oh well, there's nothing I can do about that. So I'm just gonna have to do the very best I can, she recalls. That's what I've been doing, the best I can. I've done 10 Broadway shows. I've done 10 of summer stock. I've toured Europe 2 or 3 times. I've done radio, television, and several movies. She performed in such Broadway hits as Pearly, The Blacks, Raisin in the Sun, and Pearly Victorious. Her film credits include The Anderson Tapes, A Hero Ain't Nothing But a Sandwich in Hollywood Shuffle. She did guest shots on numerous primetime shows, appeared in Roots and the television movie Dummy, and was a regular on Baby, I'm Back. Marla Gibbs, who is producer and star of 227, specifically asked for Miss Martin to play the saucy role of her nosy neighbor Pearl Shea. Her unwavering devotion to acting did not interfere with her marriage, Miss Martin says. My husband was always proud of me. He died after they were married for 3 years. They had no children, and she never remarried. Looking back on her career of nearly 50 years, she says adversity was always present, but so was determination. I'm what you might call dedicated. When you do what you want to do, you're happy. I've done other kinds of work that I hated. I did war jobs. I worked in the post office during the war, and I hated it. I worked in the garment district, pressing clothes, and hated it. I always loved acting and show business. Somehow, a show would come up eventually. Miss Martin, aware that she is more fortunate than many others who have chosen careers under the bright lights. Still, she says, racism gets to me even now. I'm still having to deal with it. Nothing has changed. It's just in Technicolor now. Racism will always exist, she suspects, but it never has and never will get in the way of her acting. All I know is that I love it, she says.
What does he look like?
He's fine. Woo. Bye, Miss Clark.
Bye.
I know what you're thinking.
At your age? Shame on you, Pearl.
He's my favorite director. He was my first director.
He was?
Orson Welles, who did Native Son.
On Broadway.
Written in 1942, written by Richard Wright.
Uh-huh.
I belonged to a group that I helped to organize in called the American Negro Theater.
Uh-huh.
And I was one of the original members of that. That's when we had Ozzie Davis and Reuben, all of them came out of that group.
Was black?
We just didn't say no black theater. It just said show business.
Show business theater, right.
That's
of course.
right. Now, uptown...
Why do they carry on today so much?
Oh, that has to do with a lot of colored folks who want to identify themselves. You know, I mean, please. We're just human beings.
Right, right.
I never was into that sort of thing.
Right.
People are people, you know, so we're
Right.
black. Wherever you look and see we're black. Well, anyhow, I just always want to be in show business.
That's it.
All my life, I didn't look up and see somebody in the mood and want to do it. It's inside here.
So you didn't study, really?
Not really. When I was little, I used to go up in the attic and drag clothes down, you know, and I'd put them on and stand in front of the mirror and act like I was fainting. And I don't know how this came about, but I don't know how I instinctively knew you had to have something on your face. So I rubbed talcum powder on my face, and I was acting, always acting.
Always acting.
It's in here. I was born wanting to be in show business, in some part of the entertainment world.
Right.
I was born wanting to do that.
Dramatics, funny, everything.
I never thought I was funny. In fact, I don't think I'm funny. You know, I don't.
That's what's so good about you. Yeah, that's what's so good about comedy. Yeah, but you came out to California after you did all these wonderful
in '73,
shows.
I came out here to do a pilot with Rosie Greer.
Rosie Greer.
That's what I came out here
Really?
in '73 to do a pilot with Rosie Greer. I was supposed to play his grandmother or something, and I forget the name of the play. Anyway, so my agent at that time, she's got Ernestine McClendon.
Right.
So I was getting ready to go back to New York. She says, "Oh, why are you going?" I said, "Well, the income tax people are out there. I got to go back today." But she said, "That's okay. Don't worry about it." She said, "Why don't you stay out here and see what happens?" So I stayed out here, and I got in good times.
But you
would ask the role, and then
came to Hollywood. You got in these wonderful series like 227.
That's right.
Tell me about 227. How did you get that?
Well,
that's a good show.
That was
funny.
created by Christine Houston, who lived in New York.
Right.
I lived in Chicago.
Right.
And her address said it was 227 Wabash. And she wrote a play about it.
Right.
And they brought it down and gave it to Marla, because Marla's theater was on
Marla Gibbs?
Vermont then.
Right.
Crossroads.
Right.
And so Marla did it as a play. Now, the actor in the window was a blind man. And so she changed that. She told Norman, she made a video of it. And told Norman that she wanted me for the role of Pearl Shea, who sat in the window. That's how I got to be sitting in the window.
Pearl Shea. I love it.
I said, I want Helen Martin because I want a senior who doesn't care what you think. They do what they want to do and say what they want to say.
Yes.
So they said, fine. So I called her up and said, would you like to do the show? And she said, yes. So she came and she got the most ratings, more than any of us.
No, none of us are employed right now.
You're not employed right now? You're not doing anything right now?
No.
But you do special appearances. You're going out to get awards right now. You're going.
But I mean, that's just
you're not
part of. I'm not making a living. I'm not working.
Not anymore. For a while.
Well, it isn't anymore. It's just no jobs. I don't have any jobs. But everything is white now. You understand?
Everything is white. I disagree with you there. I really do. No, it's not everything white.
It isn't?
No, I don't think so. What do you mean by everything is white?
It's a racist type of thing, you know.
You believe that?
Of course.
I don't. I really
well,
don't. I
okay.
Can't, because you've been working all these years.
That doesn't have anything to do with it. It's
What
certain
does?
parts.
Yes.
I don't get the roles.
I see.
So I'm a character actress also.
Right.
Comedian,
a very good
character, and satire.
Right.
I just get what I can. You know, it just so happened that 227, I had done a lot of shows before 227.
You certainly have.
But I only worked like a day here, 2 days there.
Right.
227 was on a series that I've ever been on where I worked every day. That's what I'm talking about.
Pearlie. Tell me about Pearlie. And you did Roots. You did Roots. It was a big hit.
Well, that was a couple of days' work.
Don't see, you're throwing me out a couple of days' work. There.
No, the part of it is you said like I work so much. You understand?
Well, you're a working actress. So you're a character working actress all the time.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say.
All right. Oh,
That's
this
a
kind of
cute
guy was sitting on the bus, a streetcar or something, and he was sitting there, and somebody touched him on the shoulder. Touched him on the shoulder again. He said, "What do you want?" And the lady says, "Excuse me, mister, but there's a roach on your collar." He said, "Leave it there. Everything else colors folk get, you white folks want it." I have never struggled.
Never struggled?
No.
So,
I've never complained. You never complain, never explain.
Helen?
When I lived in New York, if I wasn't working in show business, I got me a job doing something else.
So you just kept the living?
I worked. I had to work because wasn't nobody taking care of me but me. My husband was dead. I didn't have no way. But I knew how to make a living.
Right.
I worked in Western Union. I worked in the post office. I worked at the Manhattan Maid Service where I served dinner parties. I run a hotel work. I run an elevator.
You go to church every
Oh,
Sunday.
yes. I go to Little Country Church of Hollywood.
Country Church?
Church of Hollywood.
Tell
It's
me
right
about
on
that.
Argyle.
I love that.
I used to live on Beechwood.
Right.
Well, I've always gone to church. I was raised in the church. Sunday school, church, you know what, all my life. And in fact, I joined church when I was 12 years old. I was baptized and everything. So anyhow, I used to pass by this little church. It was in 1976 on the bus. I was going way downtown to 6th Street to some church way down there. And I say, it had a big sign out there, country church. I said, I'm going to go in there one of these days and see what happened. I went in there and I've been going there ever since.
Ever since?
I read poetry on special occasions. And I love poetry. I read out of a Helen Steiner Rice's poetry.
So Helen Martin loves poetry. You love good music.
I've always liked poetry.
Very happy. You have a man in your life? You have a husband or children?
No, my husband's
dead.
Been dead.
Yes. You have children, do you?
No. I had my daughter passed away several months ago.
So Helen Martin's
stepdaughter.
But Red Fox and you are very good friends. Very good friends.
Yeah.
Tell me about Red.
I was with him in his first movie, Cotton Come to Harlem.
Right. Tell me about Red.
Well, I knew him in clubs and things that
Years
he did
ago.
before that.
Right.
Yeah, very nice guy. He was very
great.
nice. Very nice. He would always reach back and give his friends work, you know, that had worked with him before. He was a nice guy.
What does that mean?
I don't know. Just it's Jewish, I think. You know, I'm part Jewish. I'm a black Jew.
Oh, you're black Jew.
You know, they did, when I lived in New York, in the Bronx, there used to be some black Jews living. And I used to gather clothes and things to take to them. and they decided to go to Jerusalem, their home. But they weren't accepted. That made them go off.
They went off?
They weren't accepted, but they stayed over there. And I think they still... Abraham, you see, was black.
Abraham who?
In the Bible.
Oh, really?
Martin, not nice to me.
No. Damn, the 227's set was
I
no
shouldn't talk
joke.
about it like that, but she was mean to me.
Really?
But she leaned out the window one day. We were doing the thing, and I was doing my thing, and we had a little lull in the action, you know, a little 5-minute break. And she leaned out the window. She said, "You think you the star of this, don't you?" I turned around. I said, "Yeah, you old bitch, I am." That's about 3 years in. That's when I knew I had made it. Because I was like, "You ain't gonna talk to me any old damn way." She went, "Well." But and then when she died, she was in the hospital, and they took her out, took her home, and she had a young gay white boy taking care of her. I forgot his name, but they were together for years. He took care of her to at the end of, and she was in the bed, and the doctor came in. He said, "Are you gonna be all right?" She said she was smoking a joint. She said, "I'm gonna be all right." He said, "Yeah." She said, "Why the fuck am I in here?" Helen Martin.
Here's a little bit more information about Miss Helen Martin. She was one of the first African-American actresses to have a major role on Broadway, and she was nominated for an NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Motion Picture for her role in Hollywood Shuffle in 1987. It says that Helen was born in St. Louis, Missouri, but just a short while after, she went to Nashville, Tennessee, and that's where she was raised and went to school. And that probably had a lot to do with her mother, Amanda, and her father, William Martin, being from Nashville, Tennessee. Helen's mom, Amanda Frankie Fox being her maiden name, Martin being her married name, was born in 1884, and sadly, she passed away in 1928 at the age of 43, and at the time, Helen was only 19 years old. I know that had to have been devastating for Helen, especially considering what the article said. She was the only child. So she had no siblings. It was just her, her mom, and her dad. So I'm hoping that at least her and her dad had a good relationship. Now don't you see why I said that article that I read would pretty much explain everything? Because it really gave good details. Because in most videos or things that I have seen about Helen Martin, it said that she wasn't married. But based on the article, she actually got married in 1939, which means that she would have been 30 years old. And then they said, sadly, her husband passed away 3 years later, which would have made her 33 years old. So he had to pass away in, 1942? We heard in the article that Helen and her husband never had children, and she never had children after that because she never remarried. But we did hear in that interview with, I think the man's name was Alan, that when he asked her about her husband, she said that her husband had passed away, but she did have a stepdaughter that had just passed away. I think she said some months earlier, so I don't know how this was her stepdaughter, but biologically she didn't have any kids, but she felt like that she did at least have a stepdaughter. In one of her interviews, Helen even mentioned she was a black Jew. I found that very interesting, and I was really wishing that the man would have asked her more questions about that, but whatever. I think one of my biggest takeaways from doing this video on Helen Martin is that she was definitely a hard worker. Like she said, she would work any type of job, do whatever she had to do. She always made sure her bills was paid, her phone was on. She was never going to go without. She was never going to struggle. She had been working, acting, and on Broadway for 60 years. She took whatever type of roles that she could get. She said that she never complained, but even with all of that being said, I don't think that she felt like she was still getting the roles that she knew that she could get. I feel like that Helen really would have liked to been on more series for people to believe in her acting more than probably just little roles and movies and all of those things, which was good. I mean, she appreciated it, but just like she said, those might be for a few days or a few weeks or for a few months, but it was nothing like on 227 when she was on the series and she was constantly making money. So you can work for, a few months or a few days or a few weeks or whatever, and then after that you're unemployed. Then you're not making any money. So that just made me think of the actresses or entertainers, period, musicians, all of that. One minute we see them, they're out there, they're doing their thing. Then the next minute we don't see them anymore. That's because technically they're unemployed and they're not making any money. And that can be a sad thing, especially for someone like Helen Martin, who had worked as long as she had worked and done as much as she had done. And that's why I think she was a little irritated. She seemed irritated when she was going back and forth with that man, Alan, who seemed to not understand what she was talking about. Helen Martin played a variety of grandmothers in films, plus she played memorable roles in pictures like Hollywood Shuffle, Don't Be a Menace to South Central, Mama Dow and Bullworth, The Wayans Brothers, I Got the Hookup, The Jamie Foxx Show, Beverly Hills Cops 3, House Party 2, Doc Hollywood, A Rage in Harlem, and so many more. Helen made 2 appearances on the Conan show, and her final appearance, if I'm not mistaken, was January 17th, 1996. And I believe that what she was doing on those shows was rebranding herself. I think she had realized that she was known as the weed-smoking old grandmother, and that was the way to go as far as trying to get her in films. And I personally think it was hilarious. So if you haven't checked that out, make sure you do so, and let me know what you think in the comments. Helen's last film was Something to Talk About that came out in 2000, but sadly she wouldn't live to see it because on March 25th, 2000, Helen died from a heart attack in Monterey, California. She was cremated and her ashes were given to family and friends. She was 90 years old.
Open my gift. Oh, his and her towel. Just hers.
Thank you, Pearl.
If it lasts, then I'll give you his. The kid said, Grandma, will you tell us a story? She says, why, yes. Once upon a time, there were 3 bears. They said, oh, no, we've heard that one. Tell us about the time you was a whore in Chicago.
I would like to know how you all feel about this situation, and while you are letting me know, could you please like and share this video and subscribe to Genevas Closet if you haven't already done so right here on YouTube. And you can follow me on Facebook at Genevas Closet, and you can email me at GenevasClosett22@gmail.com. You all have a fabulous day, and I will talk to you later. Bye.